Hey, and we're live.
Woo!
Yeah. Hey, well, welcome to Drawn to the Shop. My name is Tyler Crook, and this here is Sean and Keith from I Want More Comics and Games in
Hi, everybody.
Thornton, Colorado.
Yep.
How are you guys today?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm hanging in there. I was telling you earlier, I'm just fighting with my cat, but
That was funny.
but I think we'll, one of us will survive this pandemic. I can't say who. Um, Yeah, so Drawn to the Shop, in case anyone watching doesn't know, the main gag here is that I will talk to your local comic book shop owners. We'll learn a little bit about their awesome shops and what they're doing to make it through this COVID-19 stuff and what they do in general. And then while we chat, I'll be doing a commission for the shop. And after the show, anyone who spends $100 or more at I Want More Comics and Games between now and May 27th will be entered to win the original art that I'm about to draw.
Very generous of you. It's really a really cool idea that you got with this show.
Very Thanks. Cool. It's been really fun. I really, I don't know, talking to shop owners is one of those things where I always come away having learned quite a bit, So it's always really fun to find out what's going on.
Well, I think back, and it seems like so long ago, we were at the tables up there in Portland at Comics Pro, sitting there and chatting back in February. So
yeah,
it's always good for our side to also have that same type of conversation with creators to kind of share anything that we have about getting word out on their projects and reaching the customer base for that.
Yeah, and I think it's also good for the customers too. There's so much, people come into a shop, every week and buy the comics, and sometimes you get to know them, sometimes you don't, but they hardly ever get a chance to actually sit down and just talk to you about hey, where did you start? How long have you been here? All that stuff. Mm-hmm. So why don't we start there? What you guys want to give us your origin story?
You have to start. You were here a little bit before me,
so everybody who was involved in the store came from another store that was before the store. So there was
that doesn't sound convoluted.
No, it's not convoluted at all. So we were all customers of this store called Free Time Comics. They closed in 2008, but we had all been customers, long-time customers. A lot of us.
Were they in Thornton too?
They were in Westminster.
Yeah,
so real close.
Neighboring cities.
Yeah, neighboring city. They weren't too far. They were maybe
5 miles.
5 miles, yeah, I thought.
Yeah.
Was where their store was located. And I used to help there all the time. I helped so much that one of the owners had got West Nile's there when that hit. When all the mosquitoes came over, and he got West Nile virus and was out for a quarter of a year. It actually messed up how he swallowed. He couldn't swallow properly anymore.
Oh my God.
So since he was gone, they asked me to come in because I'd always come and help on sales, and I'd help on shows, whatever they needed me to do, because I liked the shop. I just liked the shop. And I learned a whole lot of stuff those 4 months about how to run a comic book store, just helping them out and working with them. So fast forward a couple of years after that happened, and a friend of mine, his name's, you want to name people?
Yeah, we name people. They're all friends of ours.
A friend of mine named Don Lund decided to buy into that store because it was originally a son and his parents. His parents moved to another state and left it all to his kid. And so the kid was running it by himself and couldn't do it. And my buddy Don came in and put money down and bought into the store. And then they asked me to be part of the store as well because I'd been there so long. I was like the weird guy who showed up and just never went home. That joke in High Fidelity. I was that kid. Yeah. So I just kind of worked there. I didn't get paid. I just was there all the time. So things happened in the owner of original owner of Free Time. Things happened in his life to where he couldn't do it anymore, and so he left, and it really put that store in a really pretty bad state, actually. And the downturn in the economy of 2007, 2008, it sucked the lifeblood out of that store. It just couldn't survive. Yeah. But the way it was set up, and and like the way because they had a couple not so good loans that they had taken out. So the way all that had set up kind of crashed the store, which was bad. But because I was there so long, the guy who bought into the store, he wasn't sure he wanted to do it anymore. So he said, "Hey, I'll just sell you all the product that I have left over on the store, and then you can do whatever the hell you want with it. I don't care." And my idea was to do an online store initially. And that's when I had asked Keith here. I said, "Hey, you do websites?" Because he was doing IT at the time.
Oh,
If you want to build a website that I can sell stuff off of here?
Boy, that sounded great. I was like, "Oh, this will be awesome. We can do this cool things. We can do this. It'll be great. We'll have some fun."
So does that website work yet?
No, no, not yet. But you know what? I feel like actually we're the closest we are today
because of
all this that we've had to work on it. So like we actually put a lot of time and effort into it. Not this year recently, but
so at that time
that was the plan.
Yeah, that was the plan. And at that time, that's when the owner who just recently decided he wanted to go do other things. He's now gone, but he came to me and he said, "Hey, I think we can do a comic book store." And I'm like, I was kind of disheartened by the whole thing too, because you watch your store crash and burn and it breaks your heart.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'll tell you what, man. You go to the state and you get all the proper paperwork filled out and you take care of all that crap, and sure, I'll do it with you. Because I never thought in a million years this kid would go do that stuff.
This was Zach. This was and this was a he turned around and put together his mom had small business, so kind of had the angle inside all that. It got all the documents, got it all put together, came back and said, "Hey, look here, we can do it."
He's like, "Hey, we can do this. Here's all the documents." I'm like, "Oh, I screwed up. I didn't think you were going to do this.
I've made a huge mistake.
I've made a huge mistake."
The old store had a lease, that it was going to have to default on, things like this, and the landlord ended up working with, us, and
they said they came to Don, myself, and Zach and said, "Hey, why don't you guys just reset up a store here? Then you don't have to do online. I'll give you, really, really good rate on rent, since technically nobody's renting this space. You can come back in here, kind of fulfill his contract. That way we're not going to sue him. And, we could just move forward." And it was like, okay, I guess we'll do that. So we kind of fell into a location, which was the old location. We were there for a year.
No, 2.
Was it 2?
Yeah, it was really close. It was almost 2.5 years. 2.5 years that we were at that one. But
yeah, so we brought Don back in because he said he was out, and then he came back in. Trying to get out, and they keep sucking you back in. So we did that to him.
So it was 3 owners to start that up.
There was 3 of us to start that up, and it was 6 months after, I think, when we.
Yeah, so I started. I was like, I'll start working on the website, do these things, and I came into the shop to kind of like know what we were going to do product wise and things like this. And I kept looking at all the projects that were going on at the shop. I kept looking at all the customer loyalty that was already walking back in, and and I just started like sorting back issues and putting things together, because I was like, oh look, there's real money to be made right here.
Yeah, he started doing the stuff I used to do.
Yeah, I was just like,
let's
go.
I'm just gonna show up all the time and just kind of do this.
Let's just do this. And then they came to me, "Hey, you can't be doing that. You can't be just doing all this extra stuff and not be part of us. You got to be part of us." So they brought me in on this, and that was pretty fair and generous right there.
So we opened 2 months after the previous store had closed. I believe that's what it was. No, 3 months. It was 3 months.
3 months of dark, and then we were back for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, we came back and opened in 2009, February 2009, Valentine's Day. We opened because we loved comics. That was the reasoning for it.
Yeah.
So the best part is my wife had a change jar that had like $107 in it, and I needed $100 to open the bank account for the business. I took the change drawer and just used that to open the business. Yeah, we didn't really have money to do this. So this was a huge, fake it till you make it kind of situation.
Yeah.
You want to lead into where, you always see at local cons and things like that, so you want to be a comic book store owner, panel.
Those are my favorite.
And, people talk about like, so you need a really good business plan and you need a whole bunch of money put together. We're like, that's a good idea, but.
We didn't do any of that. So we just kind of ran towards that cliff, didn't bother looking down to see if there was something soft to land on, and we just jumped right off that sucker. And then halfway down, we're like, oh, we might have screwed up.
Start knitting that parachute. Stat.
Yeah, we're like, oh, we forgot all this other stuff that we probably needed on the trip down here.
None of us. So Sean had experience from the previous store. Don had experience in the previous store. Zach had worked at the previous store. I'd done IT. None of us really had true retail,
like business,
how to do a business, things like that. Like we immediately knew we had to file taxes. You immediately knew you had to do certain things.
Yeah,
but
but
get into it.
We didn't know that you had to pay use tax. So that was interesting when they showed up and said, "Hey, we need to collect use tax." And I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, there were lots of steps where you were like learning something on the fly. The first time we brought in an employee, like, okay, we know we need to do tax. What does that mean? And you just have to jump in and start learning it and all this. And there's a little bit of a balance. We've had a couple people that we could lean on and ask. Actually, some of our best was that the shops in the Colorado area are actually pretty friendly to each other. Like there's
a good portion of them are. And when I opened the store, I specifically went to a number of shops that I knew around the city, and I said, "Hey, I'm opening a store. I'd very much like to be friends. I don't want to have any animosity or anything like that. If you want to work together and maybe trade, stock or something like that, I would be totally open to that. I'm not looking to step on your toes." And out of all the people I talked to, there was 3 or 4 that jumped on that. 2 of them wouldn't even talk to me at all. They just were like, "Nope, get out. I don't need you." I'm like, "Okay, fine. We don't have to play nice. I don't know. I'd rather play nice, but we don't have to. I'm not going to do anything nefarious towards your store, but it would be much easier if we could all just get along, So there's a store we're really good friends up with up in Boulder, Time Warp Comics, and Wayne Winsett at Time Warp Comics really did help us a lot in the early days. I modeled my store after his store. I went in there and said, "Hey, I'm stealing all your ideas for the store and I'm putting it in my store, just so you know, because I really like this."
he became a strong mentor. I mean, Wayne and Time Warp. Time Warp is actually the original Mile High Comics location.
That was in Boulder.
When they started up. He bought the franchise away and his own Time Warp, and I want to say it's 33 years right now.
I thought it was 35.
35.
It's actually hitting 35. He's been around the block a couple times.
Been there forever, and a true mentor. So a true like somebody we can ask questions to, and be able to give advice, and that helps a lot too. Like that's been a big part of learning where we didn't have the skills to start with.
Yeah.
Well, the best part was we recently, because we do Facebook live streams where we sell stuff on Facebook. We do a show for 2 hours where we put something up and tell you what the price is, and the first person that claims it gets it. Well, we've been doing that for 3 years now. And because of everything that's happened with the pandemic, with COVID-19, Wayne was having a hard time because he'd never done anything like that. So we actually went up to his store and tried to give him a little bit back, because we were able to help him get off the ground and get that going. Finally, he finally was like, "All right, I'll learn how to do it," because we've been telling him for years, and he was like, "No, technology, I don't want to do it. It sounds terrible. You guys have this market locked down." I'm like, "No, dude, you should do this, because you will move stock, you'll move back stock. You've already paid for all this stuff. You got to figure out how to move it. This is an ingenious way how to move it." And he was so resistant up until now. And when we finally got with him and kind of showed him how to do it, he was like, "This was awesome. I don't know why the hell I didn't do this years ago."
Yeah.
He had a block. Well, he's in his career, he's done auctions, so he's done it all life, and that kind of environment.
He's got that skill set, that hand selling skill set thing.
He's also like he's your nice guy neighbor personality. There's everybody likes Wayne. Wayne's a great guy. You can always talk to him, kind of thing. And this he just took to it so easy. It was he's like talking comics, because knowledgeable and things like that. And customers, all of our own personal customers connect with that so well.
Oh yeah. Well, because when you're doing the stream sale, like the live stream sale, if you have knowledge about the product and you can represent, because if you tell them that knowledge and you tell them about the book, or you tell them about where this thing came from, people are much more interested in that part of it. I have so many people that just watch, and sometimes they never buy anything, but they watch because they feel like they learn something every time they watch, which I think is really cool. Because I ask people all the time, like, "Why do you watch me get up and do the dumb things I do?" They're like, "Well, you teach us stuff, we learn about this comic or that comic or what this means, and sometimes you give comic history out, and sometimes you do this." And it's like, I enjoy all that part of it as much as I enjoy the banter between you and our employee Richie does it with me a lot of the time. So the banter you can get between the two people doing the show is paramount.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. I mean, and especially in a world right now where we're for 7 weeks we didn't have the doors open. We weren't, you weren't having any kind of interaction with customers on a real basis because, message is just, text messages are what they are. This was an environment where everybody kind of still had a chance to gather, a chance to kind of still be part of the community and all this. And it's been a blast. It's been really good for that.
Yeah, that's neat. That's like I think one of the strongest arguments for like how rad comic shops are is just the community that grows around it. Especially like shops that have gaming like you guys, like people come in and just hang out for hours and hours.
Oh yeah, that is very true. They will come in, they'll play Magic. We have a board game room where they can sit in the back and try out board games maybe they've never played, bring their friends in. We've got people that come, before all this happened anyway. It was what once a week?
They would do Tuesday nights was a pretty standard group, and then we do once a month on Sundays that was more geared at especially family, because a lot of board games are completely all ages friendly, and you're just ready to to be able to have groups like that. So we had a couple different families that would easily be part of stuff like that. So it's so strikingly obvious about what community means after a time like this. Like all the people that talk to you, that still check in on us and say, hey, you guys doing okay? And they care. They genuinely care about asking that question. It's not just the fact that we're the easiest way to get their addiction. It's the fact that they cared about our shop and our individuals and have made friends with our employees and us and then even made friends with each other when you start creating those community rooms.
That's fun to watch when like you said, when you create the community rooms and you watch one person start talking to another person, and then soon it's like 5 or 6 people all kind of talking together, and then it's 10. But then when they come into the store, they're like, "Oh, you're Eric. Oh, I'm John. Hey, good to meet you, man." And then they get to meet in person, and it's a whole other experience besides being behind the box, behind your computer. So it's kind of cool to see people grow friendships and grow that community out of being able to do this kind of stuff.
I think it's the one of the two things that really the comic shops get to do that enhance the industry really well, right? We get to bring the fan base together
even by just talking shop in the store.
Yeah, and in what I'm going to call intimate environment, because I think conventions are good too to show it at large scale and to also introduce people to new ideas. Like conventions have a spot there that's really good about servicing the customers too in that area. We get to do it intimately. We get to do it, one-on-ones or one in a small group. We have, what was it, last week's book club that we've been doing over Zoom now. With everybody not being able to meet here, was the 1-volume Bone.
It was the Bone tome.
Yeah.
So they got to sit there and again talk about why they like it, what they're into, but you're also getting to know those people and sharing. So that's one thing. The other side that we get to do is is we get to introduce the product. Like if there are products that we sell here on ours because we promote it the most. Like my go-to if anybody's looking for something different.
Really passionate about something maybe you've read or experienced.
You
pass that.
You read something good and you're like, guys, you got to get in on this. You got to turn around and do this. And of course, it feeds to our favorites. Like who we always follow, who we always read, who we always work with their like worship kind of their art. It always starts in that kind of that home base, but you just have a ton of people who are interested a lot of times in watching or in reading more than what they do. They just don't know what to grab next.
Yeah.
They have no idea what's the next thing to kind of do. And of course, the hottest thing out there is going to get its promotion. It's going to get everybody chatting about it, but it's that little hand selling, that little, kind of focused bit on this. We might have one of the strongest bases for Colin Bunn books because we enjoy, across all his different books, you can kind of tell that level of quality pretty easily. and so it's easy to kind of like kind of keep people
Plus, the guy was
hopping around.
he was on like 6 books
Oh,
in
is
a
he?
week, 1 week or something
Yeah.
crazy like that.
Yeah.
6 books. I was like, what the hell, dude? What are you doing?
Yeah, you guys could probably throw a
I just-
rock out into the shop and hit a Cullen Bunn book without even looking.
It's not hard. I mean, it's not hard at all. I mean, I guess he gets to cheat compared to an artist a little bit because like while he's still got to work and do all the come up with the good ideas, it's like once he writes a couple lines, then he gets to get out of that in like 30 seconds. If you give it, your pages are probably going to take a lot longer than that.
Well, I
So,
know Cullen too, in particular. Like, I see him on, like he'll post pictures of himself and his family on vacation and stuff,
Mhm.
and then like while he's there, he's turning in, pages to me. He's turning in whole issues, and it's just like, you're not actually on
supposed to be on
vacation, are you?
It's a workcation.
that's good. It'd be
Yeah.
tough for you to take vacation and bring all of the tools with you, right?
Oh
Like
my
that's just
God.
not the same.
Yeah, there was a time when my wife and I were talking about sort of just fucking off and getting an RV and traveling around a little bit while I, just draw in the RV. But I can't leave my studio anymore. It's like I got this giant desk that like goes up and down, and like I just love it too much. It's way too comfortable to do my thing. If I was just doing everything digital, I think I could do it. But
Oh, okay.
doing the watercolor stuff, it makes it too
Yeah, that's
hard.
a lot of pieces. That's again even is that probably like the most like what would be the only thing that needs more like larger scale in materials like oil? Like I mean, is that because again like even let's say if you were just doing pencils and inks and Copics and things like this, like that's a smaller case to carry around, right?
Yeah.
Like watercolors need a lot more than that.
Yeah, as soon as you have to have tubes of stuff, because I have
All
a
the
lot of
tubes.
stuff, and you have to have more brushes too. Like I have one brush that I use for inking, but I have about 10 brushes that I use regularly for the watercolor stuff.
Wow. Yeah, like that's just got there's so much subtlety to it. I you can see with what you do in the art with it, like that's
I feel like you lose stuff if you did that. If you had to take it all with you, you'd probably like lose your favorite brush
God,
or something like that.
left this at the Motel 6.
Yeah, you're like, oh no, this is
Yeah.
this is back at the motel. I have to replace. I need to go back. You need to turn the plane around.
Well, I have
That sounds
stuff.
like
I have
terrible.
stuff too. Like I've been doing more and more airbrush as the years go on, and so it's like that whole rig would be really rough
That's
to
a lot.
to
That's a
take
lot.
with me. Take my little compressor and everything. They would love me down at the coffee shop.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, just the sound, just the noise.
Just the compressor.
That sounds so great.
So do you guys remember the first comic shop you ever went in?
Yeah, I do.
Do you want to talk about it?
So, yeah, if I'm thinking my first one I ever went into, back in late 80s, early 90s here in Colorado. I mean, here in Colorado, we've always had a massive amount of shops.
There's a bunch.
And it starts with, that there were so many Mile High comics around.
Yeah.
And
I think he had like 11 or something in his height or something crazy like that. There's a lot.
There was
There
a couple.
There was a lot of distribution there too, right?
Yeah, he was involved in some.
Yeah.
Like Diamond had some of their some of their operations in his warehouse. I mean, it's been a massive operation for a long time. And then everybody who's read the 80s comics have seen the Mile High, ads, the prices, and all this, and we all laugh about it today. I'm like, well, I'd buy that for that now, like. I'll take the first appearance of that for $5, sure. But I think mine had to have been. I'm really thinking it was it's tough. It was either the Mile High Comics in Buckingham Square,
Okay.
which was
That's gone,
it was a mall. It was one of these malls that Buckingham Square is long gone, blown up, and all this. But it was a smaller shop. It was probably 1,200 square feet. A mix of the new stuff and a little bit of back issues, but like you just don't have a lot of room, to do a ton of stuff. This was going to be late 80s, early 90s, so even like statues and extra pieces weren't that big. It was Comic shops were comic
It was
shops.
just comics
You
mostly.
didn't have to have 10,000 Funkos.
No.
No,
Well, yeah, we do now.
we do now.
Yeah.
But I think that was mine. I think it was there, and it was just a day trip to the mall, and like curiosity kicked in. I know my first comic I bought was still off of like the newsstand, the newsstand at Safeway grocery store. Like it was still, because I thought I struck it rich, because I was like, this can't be an X-Men *1. Like I know that it's got to be worth a lot of money. I'm like, I gotta buy this. Like, has it been sitting here for 30 years? This artist Jim Lee's really good, but but
yeah, when you don't know.
Oh
you don't
my
know.
God.
I was like, oh, they started X-Men *1 over again. I guess it's not $1 million,
Yeah.
but I still loved it. But that was probably still the first comic. Which shop was yours?
Mine was Tornado.
It was Tornado. I was gonna guess it was gonna be Tornado.
Yeah, right. Actually, not too far from where we're located now. There was a shop called Tornado Comics that, when I was in high school, I went to, and I went to because I was in a graphic design class when I was in high school in like 10th grade, I think, and one of my classmates had Infinity Gauntlet #4, and I'd read comics before this, but they never really grabbed me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd get comics here and there, and I'd kind of read them and throw them to the side, and it was whatever. But he had Infinity Gauntlet 4, and that cover with Thanos doing the "Come Get Me" pose, and then you read it, and he just decimates the Marvel universe. I was like, I have to read all of this. This was awesome. So they told me where they went, so I went down and made a trip to his store, and I'd never been in a comic book store. Like, everything I'd bought before that was off of, the spinner racks at King Supers or whatever, or 7-Eleven or wherever the hell I got them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time I actually went to a physical store, and the owner at the time, the owner of the store until he passed, was this guy named Todd, and he was super cool, super nice. You could tell he genuinely had a love for the medium. He got me right what I needed and helped me out, and I became a huge customer of his throughout his time there. And then, of course, like I said, he ended up passing because he just got a disease that killed him young, unfortunately. But then I tried to go to Mile High, and I had a different experience entirely. And I was there for a total of 2 weeks and never went back.
So, I mean,
they have a different
their mega
way
store.
of doing things.
Their
And
mega store
and I went to the mega store.
Yeah.
And it was a mega store.
When you hit the volume, like that and all this, you can see where it gets tough to like have the personal relationships all the time.
Uh-huh.
But like for us, it's been something where we had to like kind of beat ourselves up about. Like you have to kind of like force yourself to do that work, because that is again where you're really, making the connections, where you're, like you have community, you have, more than just a,
once you walk somebody to their first book and then they come back and say, hey, I really enjoyed that book you gave me. Got something else you can recommend? And then you walk them to their second book. And then after a while, they're like, I will never question a recommendation you have for me. I might not love them all, but I'll appreciate that you had me read them because I can see the artistry in that book. I've been told that a bunch of times after showing people so many comic books, so many different things to read and that kind of thing. But that's what it is. It's just the hand holding that I appreciated from Todd that I didn't get from Mile High, unfortunately. So where was your first store?
The first one I remember going to was a place in Oceanside, California. It's still there, but I can't find. I was looking just the other day for it because I was asking shops the same question. What was mine? I can't find a website for them, but it was a place called House of Armand, and it was one of those comic shops that and this was 80, probably like 87 or something. So, and it wasn't especially kid friendly. It was a lot of, it was a lot of like heavy metals and stuff like that. It was almost a head shop,
Totally wanted to go there.
Yeah, no, it was one of those places where like I never felt 100% comfortable there, but I was as put off by it as I was like intrigued by it, because as a little kid I felt like this is like maybe some cool thing that I just don't understand because I'm a kid.
You're breaking the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Tera? Oh, do you remember my wife?
Yeah.
Ever meet my wife? She's in here with us.
Hey, how's it going? It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I miss you.
I miss you too.
Yes, I'm the one that's really always overly concerned about making sure people eat.
Yeah.
Like, when are we gonna eat? When are we gonna eat?
What was your first comic shop?
It was, so I went to school, like, I could walk to my school from here, and so my first comic book store was, the Mile Hideout was just right there, and I just noticed that it just felt weird when I went in there, and I couldn't find the things that I wanted to find. And I had gotten into comics because I had this boyfriend in high school that had really beautiful Michael Turner comics. And it was funny because I was really delicate with them. I was like, oh my God, these are like precious and probably worth $1 million. And then I decided, screw the boyfriend, he was worthless. And so, but I wanted my own Michael Turner comics. And so, I had a car, and I was like, well, Mile High didn't do it for me. So I'm going to go to Free Time. And so I found this place on my route home from a Mexican restaurant, and that's when I didn't know this, but apparently Sean had seen me come in the store smelling like Mexican food and like just looking totally homely. And I was like, is there any Michael Turner comics? And they're like, no, not this week. And I'm like, okay. And I just beelined out. Well, I didn't know he had cancer at the time, so there was no comics that he was making at the time. But then Sean found a way to get me into, I think it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
No, it was Conan. You found
loved
Conan.
Conan. Yeah, I did love Conan. Well, it was between Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Conan. Like, I decided those were my two comics. And so I was thinking about, because I often get asked, like, what kind of comics do girls like? And I'm like, now the more I think about it, I was like, I don't think I'm a good, like, that's like asking a guy. That's like asking a guy, like, what do all the guys like to read? And it's like, well, they all like something different, it's what they want. But
what's funny is so often the answer to both is X-Men. It's like,
yeah, I did like X-Men. There was a time where it was really good, and then I got really confused, and I thought I couldn't read comics because I was like, I don't understand why people say this is good, and I realized people were trying to sell me stuff that wasn't good, and I was like, maybe I'm a bad fan and I don't know what I'm doing. But it was bad. What was that like 2005 or 6? When was that?
I don't remember. It was a while ago.
It was a minute ago. So I'm a little bit younger than Sean, so my comics are a little different.
Only 10 years.
Only 10 years. So
No big.
But I think I saw. Oh, I like your piece that you're working on.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I think I saw you doing Swamp Thing when I was sitting next to you at the table. I was really into that.
Probably, yeah. I get asked to do Swamp Thing a lot. And I'm glad he's one of my favorite characters to draw.
But I remember you saying you really liked Dead Man. You loved doing Dead Man.
I love drawing like zombies and stuff.
Yeah.
And that oh shoot, I always forget people's names whenever I'm live on camera.
Sean?
Kelly Jones.
Oh,
Kelly
yeah.
Jones's Dead Man is like my absolute favorite. In fact, I get really kind of upset when I see people draw Dead Man and he's sort of like handsome and buff and stuff, and I'm just like, no, Kelly Jones showed us the way.
Just a little emaciated.
Yeah.
I like Kelly Jones. Wow.
Kelly Jones stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
That's a really good one there.
Want to jump back in this way?
I can.
I don't know if you can sneak in with us.
We can make it really awkward. I mean, we're practically married.
We're not practically married. We are married.
You are married.
Well, I mean.
Remember?
No. You
It's
two are
comic book
married,
size.
and me and Sean are married.
Yeah.
But you and I are not married.
We're like married by proxy.
We're like friendly-ish.
Yeah. We have a question in the comments about what size is the artboard, and this is actually exactly a comic book board size.
Is that 11 by 17 or?
Yeah.
No, this is I always forget what comic book size is. It's 6 by 10 ish. So
like a backing board.
Yeah, it's like a backing board size.
Yeah, 6. Yeah, it's like 6 7/8 by 10 3/4. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Oh,
This comic, by the way, is like never gonna leave my desk. This is like you can see he's like finish the cover. I can't remember that art how to pronounce that. Aparo?
Or Joe Aparo?
Yeah, Joe Aparo. Rock kills the Batman or I kill you. And the story is just bonkers. Like these terrorists show up to the comic book artist's house and they're like, you have to kill the Batman in the comic. And the artist is like, no, and runs away. And like the terrorists chase the comic book artist to get him to draw
That's
that.
awesome.
And Batman ends up saving him. So, spoilers.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Wait.
No.
this one? They're based on that?
So were the terrorists all the editors?
No, the editors he keeps calling the editors and the writer to like get help on like how to write like how to like what should happen on the next page. And
That's
they're all
great.
like the writer and the editor are like on vacation and stuff.
It was a little bit like
So-
Will Eisner's like the spirit thing that I just read in the little. Was it the 80th anniversary?
Oh, the little collection one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cute. I liked it. Well,
Kind of a fourth wall breaking.
yeah.
So usually on the show I ask to show us the shop. Do you guys want to wander around and
Show the shop?
show
Yeah.
off what you got?
We can do that. We opened up. We were back to being open on our little reduced hours right now.
People are going to be out there, so we got to mask up.
Yeah, but yeah, sure, I'll let you do that. So we've been open for the last couple days since Friday, and we are open right now. We'll still run around and all this because we've got a couple of our employees are out there taking care of everything on the floor while we do the interview.
Mhm.
But absolutely, that's why we thought ahead when you brought this up and all this, and that's why you suggested we get on the iPad so we can do this.
We can
game.
wander.
So we're gonna grab it and we'll.
Is this a new iPad or is this still my old one?
That's a new one.
I was gonna say like.
You want to turn this around? Is that how you want to do this?
I think so.
How do you turn it around?
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
I don't think
I
it's.
don't know if you can do it on Skype.
It's on one thing here.
Oh, he's gone. You just took a picture.
I'm not. We're gonna have to hold it up. No. That's gonna end
Yeah,
it.
don't do that. We don't want to end that. I think it turns it off.
Camera on and off to the sky.
All I can do is I can go like this.
Yeah, you're gonna do a lot of over the shoulder shot.
It doesn't look weird.
So you
We can
guys,
follow Keith around.
so you guys have the shop is open. People come in and go shopping, but you guys are also doing like curbside and stuff too, right?
We are. We're keeping
Yes,
up
we
with
are.
anything like that. Like whatever's more comfortable for the customer to turn around and do. Normally out here we have more gaming tables, but that area is kind of shut down right now.
You might have to speak up a little bit.
All right. Sorry, it wasn't facing us either. So
Yeah, we were probably talking from the wrong side there and all this, but
yeah, this open area is usually where we have a lot of the gaming going on, like the Magic Gathering, that kind of stuff. And then if you come back here, this is where our board game room was. Like we don't have tables up right now, obviously, because we can't.
Mhm.
Can't have people hang out really like we could before. But walls, board games. I
And
feel like I'm
that's
drunk
just-
walking.
That's just free for anyone who comes in. They can just try out a game and sit down and play one, right?
Yeah, that's this whole rack right here. So all of these are tester games. You can sit down, play whatever you want, family, friends. That's what all that is.
That's really cool.
And a lot of the stuff we have for sale. And then it's Tera. Out the way, long hair.
Oh. I thought you were coming at me.
I was coming at you. But yeah, this is our magic counter. That's our employee.
Hi, how's it going?
That's
Hey,
Richie.
are those all
The
magic
Richie.
cards?
Yeah, this is an entire rack. So there's all this.
Is this new stuff?
Yes, that's all the new set. But like, if I pull back a little bit, I'm trying to get as much as I can in. But that's all the cases, and then we sell singles as well.
And in those light up cases, those are all the fancy cards, right? Those are all the
Yeah.
black dahlias
those-
or whatever.
Yeah, those are the ones that they're more expensive. But
yeah, all the high end stuff to kind of showcase there and all this. Everything else is like inventory, and we have a system where you can order online and pick up in store for all the cards. We keep that available. And then
where do you want to go now?
kind of a new release rack. I mean that's a big part of the.
Well, this is cool. And then, like right near the new release rack, we have bookshelves of manga, which actually
Nice.
sells very well for us. But this is two-sided. I have customers on the other side. I don't know if they want to be filmed, so I'm not going to do that. But
So our new release rack here and all this, we have, I think it's 180 spots per week that we can front face everything individually.
Mhm.
This entire side is everything that's non-Marvel, non-DC.
So that's all. That's all. Yeah, not Marvel, not DC.
Yeah, we kind of what's up on here is still that last week of what Diamond shipped at the end of March. So you'll see we start off with like Dark Horse into Image across the top, but everything underneath that is, every other publisher that we can kind of like carry. I mean, Aftershock, Ablaze, Boom, Archie, IDW, everything throughout this whole thing. We try to keep wide. It's one of our niches is to be a little bit more available to the
Non-traditional comic reader.
yeah. I mean, like the big point here for everybody is that you got to find the books that you like as opposed to just the most popular stuff. And
Yeah.
so this is a strong suit to things so we can kind of like feed to somebody's interests to say, oh, I really like books about blank, horror books or whatever. You're not going to find that quite, you find a real limited amount if you're only dealing with Marvel and DC.
Yeah. Yeah, this is also two-sided. You get to walk around this sucker. And it's funny because when we first opened, I bought these were CD racks
Oh yeah.
at Circuit City before they went bankrupt and closed down. I went in there and I was like, oh, how much you sell these racks for? So I got them dirt cheap. But they work perfectly for comic books.
So Marvel DC get their side here and all this where they have all this. And then
That's your main counter. This is
Have you guys gotten
this is
any
our
new
Go ahead.
books this week?
yeah,
a little bit.
just
Nice.
a little bit of DC. We'll have Diamond's first stuff really start shipping on next Wednesday. So
Okay.
we'll have it going here.
Yeah, a little bit of DC that we got this week was the top 2 rows here. It's not a ton. We only got a little bit. They only put out a little bit, so. But that's what we got there. And then if you want to, if it's okay, kid section. Sorry.
Right by the front door, one of the big deals here is like right away is an all ages friendly. Try to keep some stuff available in there. Not as deep as we'd love it to be. We still it's an area that we're learning,
Mm-hmm.
but try to again make the options for everyone.
Try to make it friendly for kids if we can. And then.
And you got a lot of art up on the walls too, right back there.
Oh yeah.
That's always really exciting to see.
All of this stuff is typically stuff that we're using as decor, and it's not necessary. It's not really for sale.
Mm-hmm.
And we have everything from a couple original pages that we've been able to pick up. Like a couple of our favorites there. Ryan Otley, a page of Invincible there, and Amy Reeder when she was on Batwoman up there at the top.
Yeah, if I can get that in the shot. There we go. I don't know if there's glare from the.
Yeah, no,
Oh, yeah,
that's showing up super good. But man, Amy Reeder, she's one of my favorites, especially for like superhero stuff. I think she's so good.
She's actually a good friend of mine.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I grew up here in Colorado, so
Yeah, her parents still live here, so whenever she comes back, she'll come by the store and say hi and hang out. And she's a super sweetheart, man.
I've only met her. Actually, I met her at when it came out for Dink.
Yeah,
that would have been
that would have been Dink. Yeah, these are all our
these
4 months deep racks.
These racks here. We try to keep everything out and available for 4 months.
And I don't know if I can get the shot in here without screwing this up too bad, but it goes pretty deep.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So if someone comes in and they're on issue number 4 already, they can still get issue 1.
Yeah,
Yes.
we try to keep that all stocked here and all this. And again, this is the DC, Image, and Marvel side, and then this side is Dark Horse into
All the other independents.
All other independents. So, like the slots we keep up and available on that are pretty crazy.
Funny thing is, you were talking about the 10 billion pops.
Uh-huh.
So there's your 10 million pops.
Oh man, I went to a convention in France and did a signing at a comic shop in Paris, and they took me down into their catacombs, and it was like that whole building was just held up by Funko Pops.
That's a lot of pops.
It was horrifying.
Well, these we all just bought. Like all the pops we have here, we straight up bought off of people that were just selling. Like we didn't really buy a lot through any distributor or anything like that. These are all collectors that decided they were done with whatever part of their collection they were done with.
Oh wow.
That's how we acquired this entire wall of pops.
This is all
So-
within about the last year.
Yeah, it's like this is the last year is what we bought, but they sell stupidly well for us, obviously. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you? You know. But beyond pops, we also do video games now, which we're still figuring this one out because we're not exactly real good at this part yet.
Well, and a lot of momentum about like getting into this and getting into retro gaming with a lot of trading is not a good idea today. You know, like heavily building anything off of trades is not the current world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this will take a little bit of a backseat and it'll be available for sale right now. But we're obviously not going to be adding a lot of good stuff into it without really going out there and marketing to trade, and that'll be
down the road.
yeah later this year. We'll see.
Yeah.
But the focus with that is on sort of used and retro stuff.
Yes.
That's cool. Are you
Yeah,
selling
no,
consoles too, or just
Yeah.
the games?
Oh, yeah.
So it's weird because they're not really like all these boxes right here.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all consoles that we have for sale.
Complete systems.
They're complete systems. They've been
Oh,
checked
nice.
and all that. But yeah, those, and then we do have some back behind the counter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see that, but yeah. And then we have like this. We were talking statue cases, I believe, and we do have a sideshow account. So we do have some of the sideshow statues that they've made available.
Man, those guys do such beautiful stuff.
Some of their
Oh,
stuff is like this Joker is ridiculous. He's just so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But yeah, this whole entire bottom row is all just sideshows, and they actually sell. They don't sell super fast. I mean, $600, $800 for a statue. They
It's a
don't go
lot.
quick. Yeah, but we do sell them. So, and then a couple like that big boom up there. Hopefully, I'm holding up that right, so I can't really see what the hell I'm doing. Oh, my finger's in the way.
Yeah,
Oh my God, is that cape all fabric?
Yes.
Wow.
and like the belt and the holster are leather.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he's really cool. And then we do have a wall of trade paperbacks. Actually, 2 walls of paperbacks. So if I come all the way down here, and we have it broken up by sections and by publisher. So this is all Marvel. That leads into DC, leads into the, like Image, Independence, but it's an entire wall.
Yeah, man, that is your shop is remarkably big.
It's about 8,000 square feet,
With all the extra in the back room and all that.
and then more of a wall. And it just keeps going, and it just keeps going.
Well, one of my favorites actually is right here. What Sean's behind is back issues, because hunting down back issues is a big part of things.
I think you're covering the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think a big part of any collector's world, where they want to chase down stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so our rows and rows of back issues here and all this are all, they use that really nice drawer boxes, but we have, these are all short boxes. I think there's 900 short boxes on the floor of back issues that are priced and sorted.
Wow.
See if I get the scope of this. Back up a little bit. So it's just rows and rows.
That's
Rows of-
amazing. Is any of that online?
Well, that's the thing.
That's what we're working on.
That is the next step. And we kind of have a really good foundation to start that up here, probably in the next couple weeks. So we're really working on trying to tie everything together with the point of sale,
Uh-huh.
and being able to know when something sells and take it off online, things like that. So on the floor, we typically only carry like 2 copies of anything. And then what we're not showing is all the way down the other end of the building. There's another 3,000 square feet of warehouse storage.
Yeah, just storage. So we've got basically this replicated 2 or 3 more times down on the other end.
Oh wow. And it's mostly back issue stuff?
This is all just back issue. Yeah, the storage units are 95% back issues.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then our stuff we bring for cons, like our setup for cons is back there as well.
Oh, okay.
Mostly comics. There we got a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, what else do you want to see? Cover it?
I mean, I think that's really the floor.
That's
I
it.
mean, that's what's out.
What are you guys excited about right now that's been coming out of what little there is?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the first part to me seems a little bit blurry about when was that? But get back here to this. Tinian's Batman is obviously been one of the most popular sellers right now. Him and Jorge Jimenez have been doing on that have been fantastic, but I'm enjoying that a lot. My number one writer for me personally is going to be Jonathan Hickman, and so his X universe and X-Men were my 20 years. I did nothing but X-Men in my collection for 20 years.
Oh wow!
And so he's hit that running on all cylinders in that direction. There's plenty of other.
I got one over that. I want my Daredevil run to start coming back out again.
Your Daredevil right now?
Zdarsky's Daredevil has been fantastic. It's in competition to be one of the best Daredevil runs I've ever read. And I have a complete run from number 1 to now.
I haven't read it, but I would expect it to mostly be funny. Is it funny or is it
not?
It's not really.
It's not funny at all. He's tapped into a really good viewpoint through Daredevil.
Yeah.
So, and he's taken it and made it so layered with the characters, and he's actually been able to build on the characters that have been there for a long time. So he's making Wilson Fisk seem a little different. He's making Daredevil seem different. And there's a couple new characters that are now kind of just blowing me away. Like the way he's writing this, I wouldn't have expected it from him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's just knocking it out of the park, man. I can't wait to read that, and I can't wait to read Deadly Class. I finally got caught up on that completely because I had time to read. And that book is awesome. I love that book.
Tremendous on that.
Yeah,
I was trying to remember where Die is right now, which is Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans at Image. That book has just had such a great, kind of adventure feel to it. Have you seen that one at all in all this?
No, I haven't. Is it like a sci-fi thing or?
Yeah. So the premise of this is it's flat out it's Jumanji and D&D. So kids get together in the first issue, end up you see them 8 years later, and there's like missing time where they were, and one kid's still missing, and they're not talking about what happened, but it's obvious, and the magical die start coming back to them, and they have to go back to that world. And so it turned out that their D&D session was another world, and like one of the kids is still there. So
interesting.
It's exactly that. But like the visual tones that Stephanie's able to do in that really just set your mood for it just perfectly. Like you're just all in on this kind of like, dark and things aren't right kind of world. And so that was highly impressive. That was really good in that area.
What issue are they? What issue are they on with that one?
I want to say they got to be around 10ish.
It was
10 to 15.
It was coming out not super fast, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit blurry. I know the first trade is out. I know that came out a while back, and that they've come back with the second arc. And I'm trying to remember if the second arc had completed or if we're waiting on one or two right now. Sometimes we end up falling behind on this stuff. If I skip something off the rack and we then end up selling out of it, you kind of like you fall off on a book reel for a while until you remember when the trade collection comes out.
Try to get caught back up.
Yeah, that can always be complex to turn around and remember where you are on certain things.
How about you? You read books or no?
Yeah, no, I read a ton. I read I read mostly manga lately.
Okay.
I just started rereading Opus, which I liked a lot.
Okay.
What else have I read lately? I feel like the last couple months, most of the comics I've read actually have been like work related though. Like I've been trying to get caught up on Black Hammer stuff, and there's actually way more Black Hammer than I thought there was.
Oh yeah, he's definitely been putting
So-
Black Hammer out pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
and
no,
that
there's-
entire creating that is just not it's so much deeper than just a book. It's like that entire universe kind of feel.
yeah.
That's created. It just really adds so much to it. I didn't get a chance to read the Black Hammer Justice League stuff. I know I'd heard from some other people that some positive feedback about it. We've got a couple. We definitely have fans here that are all in on Lemire. Just 100%. Do it all kind of thing. And so that is gets talked about. We run on our Facebook page. We have what's called Comic Talk group. That's specifically an area there where it's more focused about what's going on with a comic, with a story, with anything like that.
Mhm.
And we encourage a lot of the customers to start up the conversation. Like push this out there. You thought this was great. You really want to chat about it. And I know that like his work's really big on that. Everybody was on a recent kick about going back for anything that was the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale stuff with all the things that they did over the years.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like chatter in our world of people doing the different stuff there. But
I see why you smushed me closer.
Yeah, so you're in the
Because it
picture.
actually comes.
but it's really fun to think about the idea in the comic book industry that we aren't like sports where a creator's got 10 years of a career and then they've got to move on. Like there's creators can turn around and continually push out something that meets like to their fan base, to the different things, and then we get new creators that also come on, so it just continually gets wider, right? That there's more quality and more availability out there. That's fun to see when you look at the racks over and over and over again. We have so many options out there, say like within like the past 4 months, stuff that's still on the racks right now, and yet there it's not just printed for the sake of printing. I think this is your interesting debate, and we talked about this a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
Is that should there be a curation of what's being produced? Is there too much in certain areas, and there's too many things and all this? And I think that it's a weird question because it really needs to be answered in two ways. Number one is that you do see a lot of where Marvel and DC, because of their inertia, because of their wide base of everything they have, that they can put out a lot of books and they can put out a lot of smaller miniseries. And there's a lot that people may not pay. You're hitting a very small fan base with some of it. When you produce certain characters.
Yeah.
But the idea that they're just straight up has to be less titles. I think there's definitely some titles from the big guys that could be cut, but almost everything else I'm not in favor of of seeing them get cut, because there's a fan for it out there. Obviously, as a business, as a publisher, they have to worry about, is there enough fans to produce a book?
They can hold it up.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. But I never want to turn around and see a limit to say, of our 180 spots that are out there, like we have to give so many to this, we have to give so many to that, and we can only give so many to small press or unique things. In fact, we're looking at our end. We had already pre-COVID had started trimming down some of the Marvel, some of the DC, to allow more space for the smaller press stuff. Because we found great success with some of the smaller press, and some of it, is because currently it's got some buzz. I think Ablaze Comics is a new publisher on the market there that has kicked off a lot of conversation, because they hit some creators that people cared about, with like Mirko Andolfo, or Charlie Adler that was doing the Vampire State Building. Like they brought some familiar names to the conversation,
Mhm.
but then also created some other books that were, worthy of reading. Like they're not going to be, monster hits because it's tough to get that into to everybody's hands. But they kind of like those little titles that like generate a little bit of buzz and then keep steamrolling into a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
So that side of the market, especially now, has to be promoted harder. We have to be talking about and making sure that everybody who's buying a comic is fully enjoying a comic. I'm an X-Men fan, and there was a point in time where the stories got so far away that it broke me, and I didn't want to buy X-Men books consistently all the time anymore.
Yeah.
So I turned
Well, yeah,
around.
if you're reading a comic book and you're thinking about doing your laundry and while you're reading the comic book,
You should.
you should stop reading the comic book and get something else.
Yeah.
Well, and you really, this is the time to kind of like be picky. This is the time to turn around and make sure that when you're spending $4 on entertainment, you got that entertainment back.
Yeah.
It's a time to really kind of do that, to have that, and especially with where everybody's been a little bit more tuned in online, and with looking for content, right? Everybody's was mad there wasn't more episodes of The Mandalorian to
Yeah.
to make it through this crisis. You could be, people are doing more research. They're digging deeper for finding other stuff, and you can have a wider conversation about additional books to promote.
Well, that's been the really good thing about. I mean, it's not really a good thing. Anything tied to the COVID-19 thing is not. It sucks. It just sucks. But out of this, we've gotten customers that have researched, like you said, and come back to us and said, "Hey, I really want to read X. I want to read this. I kind of heard about it. I put it on the shelf for a long time and didn't want to pick it up because I had all this other stuff I was buying. But I'm thirsty. I'm thirsty for something else. I'm thirsty for something new. So do you have this book?" And we absolutely had a ton of customers send in requests, send in emails, and try to get every single person we could the books that they were looking for because they wanted to try something new. They wanted to reach out and go, "Hey, I haven't read like Black Hammer. I had somebody pick up some Black Hammer books. I hadn't read that yet. Oh, well, here you go. You should absolutely read this because it's great."
Yeah.
Or Department H. Somebody ran through a whole set of that.
Yeah.
And so it's cool that people were willing to think about stuff that they wanted to try and hadn't had a chance to try, but finally had the chance to come back and say, "Hey, I got the time now. I want to do this."
Well, and not to suck up here, but I know like in the last couple of weeks I did fill an order that was somebody catching all the trades of Harrow County. So like there
that's
was
wonderful.
Yeah, like they were.
We did that as a book club too.
We did do it as a book club book. It was on our book club. Yeah, we did the first trade on that, and it's funny. We've had almost no.
I know.
We are kind of picky when it comes to the book club, but we've had no like. I totally hated that kind of book on your book club, right?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's been vile. I mean, there's been people that said, "Hey, it's just not my style of writing." I think the one that got beat up the most was it the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it was a combo book. It was Turtles and somebody else in one hardcover. It was like a single hardcover.
Huh.
And I like half the people liked it and half the people are like, this is not what I expected out of my Turtles, and I don't really like this because of it. So, but it was like, was it Body Count or something like that? I can't remember which
It
one
might
it
have
was.
been that body. Yeah, I think it was that Body Count.
So, but yeah, that was the one that got the most division, the most adverse reaction. Half of them loved it, half of them didn't. So it was very polarizing in that sense. But most of the books, people have been enjoying the hell out of them, at least. Trying something new. Hey, you're taking me out of my wheelhouse of comfort, and you're having me read something that maybe I would have never picked up. We did Asterius Polyp by David Mazzucchelli a few book clubs ago, and everybody said they would have never picked that book up in a million years, and they absolutely loved it. And I read that like when it came out 10 years ago, and I, trying to sell that to people because the art in it is very specific to be set for that book.
Yeah.
Like he does something unique with that book, and you don't understand why the art is like that until you read the book. But trying to get people to understand what that is, it's sometimes books like that get a little difficult. You got to really, really tell people, hey, look, you should really read this.
Yeah, that's one of those books in particular that like is as much about the story as it is about the language of comics, in a
Oh
way
yeah, absolutely.
that
It
is
was
really fun.
beautiful.
Well, it's funny, those wheelhouse books that you can always come back to, right? Like
I have a question.
we always sell, Understanding Comics by Scott Mccloud.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Like that's just such a great book to like kind of like talk about the like the form.
Oh, she has a question, I guess.
I do. It's related to have you, and I know I'm not going to say it right, but I know there's watercolor and then is it ganache? How do you say that?
It's
Gouache.
Gouache, yeah.
Have you ever used that? Do you like it?
I use gouache a lot. So the only difference between watercolor and gouache is that gouache is opaque.
Okay.
Gouache still has a lot of the same properties of watercolor. So usually you can actually thin gouache down so it works exactly like watercolor, or you
Okay.
can put it on thicker and it's opaque. So I tend to use it for like highlights and for like sound effects. Lots of times I'll use them because you can get sort of dry brush effects with gouache that you can't get with watercolor. Yeah, but I use it a lot actually. And in fact, I also use a lot of acrylic ink lately, like colored acrylic inks for stuff, because it's like a very nice way to sort of add intense color at the end, and you can sort of keep working it. And because it's acrylic ink, it dries permanently. Like watercolor, like if I get anything on the painting I'm working on now, if I get any part of it wet, it'll sort of splooge out and start running again. But if you use the ink, it's like permanent. But you can make it look like watercolor really easy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Are you doing some gouache stuff, or are you?
I'm really into being creative all of a sudden. So that's one of my side effects of this pandemic is I'm at home a lot and I'm stuck with myself, and now I'm going full creative. So there was a time where I thought I was going to be an artist, and there was another time I thought I was going to be an art teacher, and so I've dabbled in these things, and so what I tend to do is when I start getting the itch to do something like watercolor again, I'll start watching YouTube videos and then I'll see a video on gouache and I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that. But then I got to stay away from the things that I don't already have in my closet, because I don't do anything like on a small scale. Like if there's a set of 5 gouache paints, or there's the 180 set, I go for the 180 set, and then I'll do it for like 30 days or once, and then I'll never do it again.
Oh my God.
But I don't get rid of art supplies, so as long as it doesn't dry out, it's fine. But doesn't seem like that's the thing for that.
I do that. I do that exact same thing a lot. Like about a year ago, I decided I was going to try to figure out how to paint with acrylic. And I did that. I spent, I don't even know how much money, like a couple $100 at least on different acrylic paint sets and stuff. And it's funny, in the end, like I ended up deciding like I liked acrylic ink instead. Like that was the thing I was trying to do with acrylic paint was I wanted it to be acrylic ink. So as soon as I found that, it was like, okay, now I have to spend another $200 to get all the acrylic ink I need. And
so I don't think the materials are ever wasted if it gives you a better idea of what you like. But
yeah, like it was definitely worth it to learn the lesson in the end. But but it's an expensive.
But I don't see it that way in the moment. I see it as like you're a complete failure. You wasted a bunch of time and money. Quit and never do this again, and then I'll pick it up again. In some of these cases, it's like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years later, I'm picking up some of these supplies and I'm like, why'd you give up on this? You were actually not that bad. You just needed to like chill
sometimes
out.
It takes that step away to look at it and reevaluate, but you have to step away, Yeah,
and actually, there's also like a lot of like I always go in with way too many preconceived notions about what I should be able to accomplish with a specific art material. And then like when I don't get the thing that I was expecting, it's hard to figure out what I should expect from it, like what are realistic expectations of this medium.
I feel that way too. Like I've tried to make like I dabbled in cosplay, and sometimes when you try to make one thing look like another, it can look really good. Or like for example, like I'm a little too, like I think like if the person wears chainmail, then I should wear chainmail too. Not understanding that that's a horrible situation to be in.
Like wearing chainmail sucks.
Nobody should ever do that. Like it's not recommended. But now, like now I'm more willing to accept that some things should be used differently, like craft foam. While it's craft foam, in my mind, I think it's really light and kind of chintzy and stuff like that. If it's done properly, like it can look like it and also not make you feel like you want to die.
Yeah.
But
I like how you said in there, like I just kind of like I dabbled in cosplay, even though you're like I'm gonna do Red Sonja and make my own chainmail bikini.
Yeah, well, like the reason why I say I dabbled.
Yeah,
That was
she
dabbled.
legit made her own chainmail bikini for that outfit.
I watched
She
you
figured out how to do it. and
make
made it.
chainmail, and I was like, that's a lot of work.
So yeah, but I've done a couple characters since, but I don't like to diet anymore. So if I didn't have anything that would make me feel like I needed a 6-pack or something, I'm like, no, I like ice cream too much. Like I've decided that I'm gonna try to do this thing where you can take Monster High dolls and then maybe I'll cosplay onto the Monster High dolls. So it gives me that outlet where I can still do the costumes, but on a very small scale.
Oh my god, that's wonderful. I'd love to see some of those.
I'm gonna try. We'll see how it works, and I'll let you see it.
I have a couple friends that are into like doll customization, and it's wild.
They can do some crazy things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's funny how much of like what they do is basically the same as doing makeup, except instead of using makeup, they're using like pastels and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think the cool thing about being an artist is you can just kind of take it anywhere you want to go, and as long as you keep going with it, that's really what's important, instead of like just letting it die,
Yeah, no, there's so many. It's something that really bums me out about our culture in general. Is like there's that notion of like, oh, you want to be an artist? Well, if you can't make a living at it, then it's not worth it.
Yeah, like you
And
gotta
that's
do it
like ridiculous.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's cool that I get to watch you on YouTube making this really cool watercolor. Like I keep looking down because I'm watching you, because it doesn't show it on the iPad, but it shows it on my phone that what you're working on. It's really neat.
You know, if you want some good gouache stuff, by the way, check out James Gurney's YouTube channel.
I think I've heard of him. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
He did the Dinotopia books.
Okay.
Oh.
But he does very good like instructional videos.
Have you watched any of the Jim Lee sketches that he's been doing?
I have not. Has he been doing stuff recently?
Yeah.
So no, that was a big deal. Jim Lee decided to do 60 sketches in 60 days that are all being sold on eBay, and then the funds are going into the charity Bink, which is supporting comic book stores and comic books, store employees.
Oh yeah.
And when you say a sketch, like your mind kind of goes to like, oh, like that's, that's cool. It's that's a little something and all this, and he's way beyond putting sketch time into it. Like this is nothing that would happen just like sitting at a table. Like the amount of detail and all this is crazy with it and all this. Like I'm kind of glad you don't call this Constantine a sketch, because this is way this is complete. This is
pretty full.
This is all the way through. Like there's this full commitment. Like
I would call this a commission probably.
Yes, that's completely fair, because this is it's looking great.
I think it's pretty much done.
I like it.
Well, I was like, oh, this has got to be done, and then you keep adding stuff to it. I guess it's not done.
I guess he's gonna do that.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
that's
okay.
cool.
So it's done now.
That's great. Okay.
No, it's not done.
Oh,
and then he added more depth over here. Okay.
Well, the dirty secret about this YouTube channel is that I'm always like, this is done, and then I end the show, and then I take it over to my drawing table and I do a little bit more to it, because I just can't help myself.
Well, there was one point where you were coming into the sleeve with like a really dark, like a lot of black, and I was like, oh, he screwed it up, and then it just looked phenomenal, and I was like, what? No, that's not even fair. Like, how does he do that?
It also looks a little blown out on the camera. It's a little. The colors are definitely not right on the stream, but I haven't figured out.
All
how to
right.
make that one.
Okay. Okay. I had a house that was a fixer upper, and I did some work myself, and I knew where the flaws were. I knew the things that I didn't finish up and all this. I guarantee. I understand it's there. The rest of us are looking at this like, that's a masterpiece. That's fantastic. That's perfect.
Well, I love Constantine. That's one of my all-time favorite guys. So
Nice.
this is really cool.
Attitude.
This is actually this pose. I was trying to figure out because I penciled this last night, getting ready for today, and so I was looking for how to draw him, and so I just Googled "cool guy with cigarette," and
So
this
it's
is
like a team pose.
and the pose is based off of a Tom Waits photo I found.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
That's awesome.
Except
me
I
some Tom.
added the little like devil fingers and stuff.
That's
awesome.
sweet.
Yeah.
You're gonna
All
ask
right.
it again after this, aren't you?
You're like,
So, everyone if you missed the beginning of the stream, the idea is if you spend $100 or more at I Want More Comics and Games between now and May 27th, that's Wednesday, a week and a half from now, you'll be entered to win this painting. It could be
Nice.
yours.
that's
That's so cool.
Yeah, well,
crazy nice of you. Crazy nice.
it's my pleasure, guys. And, it was crazy nice of you to help bring me out to Denver a couple years ago to go to
Pink.
I got confused because we had said Bink a minute ago.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. You're like, wait a minute, which one?
So so it's the least I can do. And you guys, like every comic shop who has ever sold one of my books has like helped make my dream of being a comic book artist come true. So I owe you guys all a lot.
Aw.
We're in this together, etc.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So do you guys
Thanks
want
for doing
to
this.
say what?
Thanks for doing this. This is
Oh,
cool.
it's my pleasure. Yeah. Do you guys want to do just a quick rundown too on all the ways people can order from you right now?
Oh, I'm gonna hand
Jokey.
this over.
Sure. Because of the world, the way we're in, we are literally on any way you like it. We are, our website and all this is about to get to e-commerce, but doesn't do ordering online right now and all this, but it has all our contact information there. We communicate with people on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The website was our best contact point because it has access into all of that there. But we're taking phone orders. We're helping people out, like any which way and all this. We'll go digging through those back issues and figure out if there's something that you were just searching for and all this and get you a number on things like that. So we're available all the time. We're going to be here at the shop 7 days a week, 10 to 8. It's we've got the staff, we've been pretty fortunate. Our community supported us greatly through this and all, and we're sitting in a position to get through this and be there on the other side. So it's been really, really great for that. But contact us, reach us, send us any type of message, and we will figure it out.
Yeah, and everybody watching, the phone number's right above my head,
Yep, perfect.
and the website address is there too.
That's
Yeah.
right there. it's below. It's above for him. It's below for us.
The magics of the internets.
Yeah. So go buy comics, everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that does it.
Right
Thank
on.
you so much,
Thank you for
guys. It's been really fun talking to you. Thanks for showing off your shop.
I'm glad I got
Absolutely.
to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
Thank you, Tyler.
All right.
Tyler.